The fact is that we are on the brink of witnessing yet another disastrous Labour deal, because we know that when Labour negotiates, Britain loses. And to leave the House in no doubt, if and when my party is back in power, we will reverse any handover of power, any imposition of EU law, any new rights for the ECJ, and any new budgetary commitments. Madam Deputy Speaker, it's my party that took the country out of the EU, and it's my party that will keep it out.
That promise has lasted about as long as his commitment to protect pensioners' winter fuel allowance. He said whatever was needed to win power, Mr. Speaker, and now he'll say whatever is needed to keep it, even if it means selling out our sovereignty, our businesses and the public. The truth is that the defence commitments in this deal are hopelessly one-sided. We're making payments, but they are offering dialogue and consultation. This is a pitiful return for the country that leaves NATO in Europe with troops on the ground in Estonia defending our allies. Can the Prime Minister tell us why there's not a single word in his statement about the money we will now be sending to Brussels? And can he set out how much those payments will cost taxpayers? Mr. Speaker, in government, details matter, and so does honesty. They're laughing, but this is a bad deal for the country. Look at them. This is how they laughed at the budget. They have no idea what it is they signed up to. He said he would stay out of the single market. He's going into the single market for agri-food, electricity and energy. He said he'd stay out of the customs union, but he is accepting EU tariff rules. How does he plan to stop the EU changing them to our disadvantage? He has no idea, neither do any of them. Because the British people know, Mr. Speaker, when they are being misled. They know that headlines fail. He didn't listen to the CBI on the jobs tax. He didn't listen to the FSB on the family farms tax. This deal has already unravelled. The damage is becoming clear. The political consequences will be huge. And here he is, trumpeting his success. And when he stands up in a moment, he'll deflect, he'll dismiss, he'll distract. But we all know the truth. This was a fiction of a speech, a fraud of a deal, a failure of a Prime Minister.
Keir Starmer is now grappling with the most volatile political revolt of his career. Mere hours after unveiling what he claimed was a milestone in repairing UK-EU ties, the plan blew up in his face. Instead of praise, Parliament erupted into uproar. What was meant to be a diplomatic masterstroke has been recast as a brazen betrayal of the Brexit vote, a move so tone-deaf, it's triggered a firestorm that threatens to tear his leadership apart. And it's not just the opposition sharpening their knives. Starmer's own party is turning on him. What started as murmurs of discontent has spiraled into a full-blown mutiny. Loyalists are vanishing, backbenchers are in open revolt, and in a rare display of unity, MPs from across the political divide are now backing a no-confidence motion that's gathering speed like a runaway train.
Speaker, when Labour negotiates, Britain loses. He talks about a hat trick of deals. They are own goals. In 2020, the Conservatives concluded the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, the largest and most comprehensive free trade agreement in the world. We agreed to come back in 5 years to improve terms. This renegotiation should have been an opportunity to improve terms for our country. The terms are improved for the EU. And the Prime Minister can dress it up as much as he wants, but he has failed. It is bad for bills, it is bad for jobs, and it is bad for borders. This is not a deal made for Britain. This is a deal made for Labour's PR, to show them on the world stage. But it is a stitch-up for our country for their short-term headlines. Let's take the Prime Minister's abject failures one by one. First, on fishing. He has given away the prize most desired by EU member states and done so for almost nothing. Mr. Speaker, it is very easy to sign deals if you're prepared to give everything away for pennies. This deal locks out our fishermen until 2038. We are now in a worse position than the Faroe Islands, a set of islands with a population of Scarborough, but who get to have annual negotiations. And the Prime Minister quoted some organisations welcoming his deal. He doesn't listen to them normally, but he left one out deliberately: the National Federation of Fishermen's Organisations, who have described the deal as a surrender and a giveaway. This is a Prime Minister who would pay to give away his family silver. Why is the Prime Minister selling our fishermen down the river? Is it because they don't vote Labour?
At the core of this rebellion is one searing accusation: betrayal. The man who once promised to respect the Brexit result is now being painted as the architect of its quiet undoing. Instead of protecting Britain's hard-won sovereignty, critics say Starmer is prying open the EU door that millions slammed shut in 2016. This isn't just a policy disagreement, it's a political war. And Starmer may have just fired the first shot at the very legacy he swore to uphold. The backlash exploded when the fine print of Starmer's so-called breakthrough came to light, revealing a quietly buried clause that extends EU fishing rights in British waters until 2038. Not a short-term compromise. 12 more years of foreign trawlers draining UK seas, while once thriving coastal towns are left choking on empty nets and broken promises.
Overrule our courts, surrendering our judicial sovereignty.
No, I mean, that's just wrong under the agreement. There's an independent arbitration. It's the same... It's the same as the Windsor framework, which you negotiated. It is an important point. It's an independent arbitration process.
But the fury goes deeper than lost revenue. This isn't just economics, it's existential. The Brexit vote was, in part, a revolt against deals exactly like this. Fishing communities were promised control, sovereignty, and a future. What they got instead feels like betrayal on a tidal scale, another round of EU control wrapped in diplomatic ribbon. For hard-hit towns like Grimsby and Fraserburgh, this deal isn't a footnote. It's a gut punch. These communities aren't battling trade margins, they're fighting for survival. And once again, it looks like Brussels wins while Britain bleeds.
If the Prime Minister is right that our food standards are already in alignment with those of the EU, why could we not have negotiated the deal on the basis of mutual recognition of those standards, as other countries have done, rather than open ourselves up to having to alter our standards in line with whatever the EU may decide to change in the future?
That's a very good question he should put to Boris Johnson.
To critics, this deal isn't a compromise, it's a white flag. Strategists warn it will cripple the UK's leverage in future negotiations, locking Britain into a weakened position for years. And the optics? Devastating. Granting EU trawlers extended access just years after Brexit feels, to many, like Starmer's loyalty lies not with British sovereignty, but with Brussels. But before the outrage over fishing even cooled, another political grenade dropped, one that could prove even more volatile. Starmer has quietly approved a youth mobility scheme, allowing EU citizens aged 18 to 30 to live and work in the UK for up to 3 years. On the surface, it's framed as a cultural exchange. But peel back the spin, and critics see something else entirely: free movement, rebranded. The program has no entry cap, no tight restrictions, and no real enforcement. It's wide open. And that's exactly what Brexit was supposed to stop. For millions who voted to reclaim control of the borders, this isn't progress. It's sabotage dressed up as diplomacy. For Brexit supporters, this was the ultimate betrayal, a red line not just crossed, but trampled. Controlling immigration wasn't a side issue in 2016. It was the cornerstone. And now, with this youth mobility scheme, that foundation is beginning to crack. Inside Labour, alarm bells are ringing. Senior figures fear Starmer hasn't just reopened the Brexit culture war, he's thrown fuel on it. Worse still, he may have handed Reform UK its best shot yet at a political comeback. The very voters Labour needs in red wall constituencies are now being courted by the one man who's built a brand on Brexit purity, Nigel Farage. And Farage didn't miss a beat. While Starmer's team scrambled to defend the deals, Farage launched a relentless media blitz. TV spots, podcasts, viral TikToks. His message is laser-focused. Starmer is dismantling Brexit, one backdoor deal at a time. This isn't just policy critique, it's populist warfare. Farage paints Starmer as the smiling suit in Brussels, blind to the fishermen in Whitby and the laid-off workers in Stoke. And that contrast is hitting hard. Reform UK's online momentum is surging, fueled by young, disillusioned voters who see Farage, not Labour, as the last man standing for the Brexit they were promised. For Starmer, the optics are devastating. He's being cast as the ultimate globalist, shaking hands in Brussels while trust crumbles back home. In an era of voter fatigue and post-Brexit disillusionment, every photo op with EU officials becomes another bullet in Farage's political arsenal. Labour calls it economic pragmatism, Farage calls it surrender. And emotionally, his framing is winning. The more analysts examine Starmer's so-called reset, the less it looks like a tweak and the more it resembles a full-blown U-turn. This isn't minor policy adjustment. It's a wholesale realignment with the very institutions Brexit sought to escape. The deal rebinds the UK to EU food and animal welfare rules, placing British agriculture under Brussels' shadow once again. It reopens legal corridors where the European Court of Justice holds indirect sway, a line many Leave voters swore would never be crossed again. And then there's defense, hidden in the fine print, a blueprint for deeper military integration, including early-phase planning with EU defense bodies. Some see this as the first brick in the wall of a future European army. These aren't side agreements, they're foundational shifts. And taken together, they mark a sharp turn back toward the very power structures Britain fought to leave behind. Supporters claim these moves will streamline trade and smooth over regulatory chaos. But critics see something far more dangerous, a slow slide back into the very entanglements Brexit was meant to break. They argue this sets a chilling precedent where sweeping treaties are signed behind closed doors, with zero voter input, trading sovereignty for short-term political ease. Now, the backlash isn't just loud, it's seismic. Tory MPs are openly floating a no-confidence motion. Reform UK is calling for an emergency general election. But the real panic is behind Labour's own doors. Starmer's inner circle is watching the foundations crack as longtime allies start to blink. What began as unease is rapidly evolving into full-blown dissent. Whispers have become strategy calls. Backbenchers are forming quiet alliances. And inside Labour HQ, there's a growing fear that standing behind Starmer could mean electoral disaster, especially in the Brexit heartlands Labour once vowed to win back. The silence is telling. Some MPs are dodging media completely. Others are subtly distancing themselves from Starmer's EU pivot. In private, they're calling the deal political suicide. As Reform UK gains momentum, the warning signs are no longer subtle. They're flashing red. Behind closed doors, Starmer is reportedly livid. Sources say he's lashed out at internal dissenters, accusing them of betrayal and even threatening deselection. But the damage may be irreversible. With every headline, Labour's footing grows shakier. What Starmer once pitched as bold, forward-thinking leadership is now being viewed, even within his own ranks, as a catastrophic miscalculation. This strategy was simple: roll the deal out quietly, dress it up in economic jargon and travel perks, and hope the deeper compromises went unnoticed. But that plan didn't just fail. It detonated. The backlash didn't fade into the background. It became the front-page story. And voters? They're paying attention. In Brexit stronghold towns like Hull, Plymouth, and Redcar, the outrage is visceral. This isn't a policy disagreement. It feels personal. Protest threats are hitting local councils. Fishermen are planning demonstrations. Petitions to block the deal are gaining steam in community halls and online. Labour's comms team is scrambling, trying to rebrand the deal as a modern Brexit. They're touting passport perks and customs tweaks, but no one's buying it. For Leave voters, this isn't about 5-minute delays. It's about sovereignty, about the promise they thought they secured in 2016 and now feel is being erased, quietly and without consent. Outside Westminster, the word dominating the conversation isn't deal, it's betrayal. On talk radio, Telegram groups, TikTok, and pub conversations, the tone is shifting fast. What Starmer envisioned as a grand diplomatic reset is being received as a direct insult to the 17.4 million people who voted Leave, especially those who once gave Labour a second chance. And the political fallout is escalating. Reform UK is rising in the polls, feeding off disillusionment from both sides. Starmer's approval numbers are slipping. Red wall seats, thought to be secure, are suddenly back in play. This isn't just a misstep. It's a constitutional crisis in slow motion, one that reopens old wounds about trust, democracy, and national identity. By binding the UK once again to European frameworks across trade, law, defence, and migration, Starmer has reignited the very tensions Brexit was supposed to settle. And now, with a no-confidence vote looming, his leadership hangs by a thread. This isn't theatre. This is a crossroads for Britain, a moment that could shatter Labour, destabilise Parliament, and draw the entire map of UK-EU relations. If you found this breakdown valuable, don't forget to like, comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. More updates soon.